In March 2023, amidst the regular routines of family life, the seemingly stable world of the Craig family from Colorado took an unexpected and devastating turn. Their marriage and careers, once thought to exemplify stability, began unraveling as buried secrets and a loss of trust surfaced. While friends and relatives struggled to make sense of the situation, new revelations raised even more questions. What truly happened behind closed doors in this outwardly perfect family? Angela was rushed to the hospital on March 15, 2023, around 11 a.m., suffering from severe headaches, dizziness, and nausea. This marked her third hospitalization in just 10 days. But this time, the situation was far more alarming. Medical staff placed her on life support, fighting to stabilize her condition, which was deteriorating at an alarming rate. Her family, including her husband, James, was in shock, unable to comprehend the sudden and rapid decline in her health. Born on April 15, 1975, in Dodge City, Angela had been a central figure in her family and community from an early age. Raised in a large family with 10 siblings, she developed a love for animals despite her allergies. Her interests ranged from reading to woodworking, and her natural charisma and sociable nature endeared her to friends and acquaintances alike. Angela found success as an interior designer, known for creating warm and inviting spaces, and she had a passion for genealogy, helping people reconnect with long-lost relatives. On December 18, 1999, Angela married James Craig, who later became a dentist. In 2006, James graduated from the University of Missouri-Kansas City and became active in international dental programs. Together, they built a life in Colorado, where James established his dental practice in Aurora. The couple had 6 children, and despite her busy life, Angela maintained close relationships with her siblings, particularly her sister Toni, with whom she spoke daily. Angela's life seemed picture-perfect. She was deeply involved in church activities, directed a choir, and led youth programs. However, the sudden health issues she experienced in March 2023 shocked everyone. Just a week earlier, she had complained of a headache, but the symptoms quickly subsided, leaving no cause for concern. Neither her family nor the doctors could explain why her condition was now deteriorating so rapidly. Meanwhile, James remained by her side, attentive and caring as always. At 2 p.m. that same day, Angela suffered a severe episode that left her loved ones filled with helplessness and fear. The medical team worked tirelessly to save her, but the cause of her condition remained a mystery, adding to the already mounting tension and distress. When Angela became unresponsive, doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize her, but the situation spiraled out of control. The stroke she suffered on March 15, 2023, marked a critical turning point. Her brother, who had driven her to the hospital that day, later recounted that by the time they arrived, she was already in a severe condition. Her symptoms had worsened: intense dizziness, unbearable abdominal pain, and persistent nausea. This was her third visit to a medical facility in just 10 days, but this time, the circumstances appeared dire. Angela's first hospitalization had occurred on March 6th, just 1 day after she returned from a trip to visit her sister Toni in Utah. At the time, doctors deemed her symptoms minor, and she was discharged after an evaluation. However, on March 9th, she sought medical help again. Her husband, James, a seasoned dentist with years of experience, who had always been a supportive presence during difficult times, was deeply concerned. He sought advice from the wife of his friend and colleague, Ryan Redfern, who held a doctorate in medicine. In the days that followed, Ryan and his wife remained actively involved, checking in on Angela's condition. They offered their support and shared insights about potential causes of her symptoms, suggesting additional tests and consultations. James maintained regular communication with them, sharing updates and test results. Among the tests conducted were MRIs, ultrasounds, blood work, and CT scans of various areas of Angela's body. Despite these efforts, all results came back within normal ranges. The only consistent anomaly was Angela's abnormally low blood pressure, even with intravenous fluid therapy. By the time Angela suffered a stroke on March 15th, James fully grasped the gravity of the situation. He shared the devastating news with Ryan's wife, sending her photos from the hospital room. The images showed Angela surrounded by medical equipment, under constant observation by a team of specialists. Yet, even then, the doctors struggled to identify a definitive diagnosis, leaving everyone involved feeling helpless and overwhelmed. The morning of March 15th brought a frantic phone call that would heighten James's anxiety even further. Angela's brother informed him that he was driving her to the hospital because her condition had deteriorated dramatically. At the time, James was at his clinic, attending to patients. Upon hearing the news, he immediately left to be by her side. Realizing the conventional diagnostic methods were failing, James decided to consult Ryan's wife once again, desperate for answers as Angela's health continued to decline at an alarming pace. The events leading up to March 15, 2023, were tense and unsettling. On March 9th, after being admitted to the hospital for a second time, Angela was kept overnight for observation. Despite their hopes that her condition would improve, doctors were unable to determine the cause of her symptoms. While the test results consistently came back normal, the growing concern among her family and the medical staff painted a troubling picture. Throughout these developments, Ryan and his wife continued to play a significant role. Ryan, a longtime friend and financial partner of James, had supported him during challenging times before, including helping save James's dental practice during a financial crisis in 2021. This time, their assistance was just as crucial, as Angela's life now hung in the balance, and the reasons for her suffering remained an enigma. Meanwhile, Caitlyn, the new office manager at James's dental clinic, couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual was happening with her boss. Her suspicions began to deepen following several events in the days leading up to March 15th, when Angela's condition became critical. Conversations with Ryan, James's trusted friend, eventually helped her observations fall into place, revealing a disturbing pattern. It all started on March 6th. That evening, Caitlyn was working late when James unexpectedly appeared at the clinic. He didn't have any patients scheduled, and his behavior seemed out of the ordinary. Instead of working at his computer in his office, James went into one of the exam rooms and used the computer there. While Caitlyn found this odd, she didn't think much of it at the time. A few days later, on March 13th, a package arrived at the clinic. James had specifically instructed Caitlyn to personally receive it and emphasized that no one else should open it. However, when she went to collect the delivery, she discovered that another staff member had already opened the box. Inside was a cylindrical container labeled with a warning, "Hazardous materials," and marked with the words, "Potassium cyanide." While startled, Caitlyn quickly resealed the package and handed it to James without asking questions, understanding his instructions about confidentiality. Later that day, she saw James leaving the office with the container wrapped in brown paper. This incident further fueled her suspicions. Her growing unease led her to research potassium cyanide, and what she found was chilling. The symptoms of exposure, nausea, low blood pressure, and dizziness, closely matched those that Angela had been experiencing for days. By the time Ryan and his wife arrived at the hospital to support James, Angela's condition had become critical. Ryan, already aware of some of the family's difficulties, was taken aback when Caitlyn confided in him about the strange events at the clinic. Her account shocked him so deeply that on his way to the hospital, he contacted law enforcement and relayed the details she had shared. However, this wasn't the only unusual behavior that Caitlyn noticed from James. She recalled another incident. On the evening of March 6th, as she was leaving the office, James sent her a message asking her to personally ensure that a package set to arrive was delivered directly to her. At the time, this request seemed like a simple formality, but in light of subsequent events, it took on a more troubling significance. When Ryan arrived at the hospital, he decided to confront James. James claimed that the chemical in question, potassium cyanide, had been ordered at Angela's request. However, his explanation sounded hesitant, raising even more doubts in Ryan's mind. Concerned, Ryan relayed this information to investigators, who began to suspect that this case was far more complex than it initially appeared. On March 15th, Angela was rushed to the hospital once again. Her symptoms, severe dizziness, nausea, and sharp abdominal pain, had worsened to a critical level. Angela's brother, who had driven her to the emergency room, later told police that she could barely stand by the time they arrived. At this point, James seemed to realize that the situation was quickly slipping out of his control. Later that day, police began questioning James. Even before the formal interview started, investigators zeroed in on a key issue. How would James explain the connection between his purchase of potassium cyanide and Angela's sudden and severe decline in health? The investigation began with interviews with the medical staff at the hospital where Angela was being treated. A nurse, who had been alerted by Ryan's concerns, confirmed that Angela's test results showed unusual markers. Her attending physician added that her symptoms, including seizures and rapid deterioration, could be consistent with exposure to a toxic substance. These statements became critical pieces of evidence, leading investigators to focus on the events leading up to Angela's hospitalization. The following day, detectives visited James's dental clinic. Caitlyn, the office manager, shared several observations that further deepened the mystery. She recalled that on March 6th, James had mentioned taking care of Angela and preparing a protein shake for her. Not long after, Angela's health began to decline, a coincidence that caught the attention of investigators and raised even more questions. Caitlyn also mentioned that in the days that followed, James often appeared anxious, avoided conversations, and spent a significant amount of time on the phone. What particularly caught her attention was his request for her to sign paperwork related to clinic equipment purchases. Upon reviewing these documents, investigators discovered that the amounts listed were far higher than the actual cost of the equipment, raising suspicions of potential financial misconduct. One of the clinic employees confirmed that James frequently used the office computer for personal purposes. In February, the employee recalled seeing James visit a website related to chemical reagents, which included references to substances that could be extremely dangerous. These observations aligned with the discovery of James's purchase of potassium cyanide. The investigation soon extended to James's financial activities. Detectives uncovered that on March 4th, James had transferred a significant sum of money to an unknown supplier associated with the sale of chemical substances. The order had been shipped to the clinic's address, allowing James to keep it hidden from his family. When investigators traced the delivery, they connected it to the package Caitlyn had seen. She described the container with the warning label and noted that James had taken it home after retrieving it. Attention quickly turned to James's office at the clinic. Another employee reported that James had recently started locking his office door during lunch breaks, an unusual behavior for him. During a search of the office, investigators found remnants of packaging materials that appeared to match the delivery containing the potassium cyanide. Meanwhile, hospital staff continued their efforts to save Angela's life. The levels of toxic substances in her system were so high that doctors ruled out the possibility of accidental poisoning. This critical detail laid the groundwork for new allegations against James. Detectives obtained warrants to search James's home and vehicle, suspecting that additional evidence could be found to link him to Angela's deteriorating condition. Caitlyn provided further testimony, pointing out that the symptoms of potassium cyanide poisoning, nausea, vomiting, and low blood pressure, aligned with what Angela had been experiencing. She also noted that the chemical could be lethal, even in small doses. Each new piece of evidence deepened investigators' suspicions and brought them closer to the conclusion that Angela's health crisis was the result of deliberate actions. The investigation included an examination of James's computer. On it, detectives found notes detailing the dates and times of Angela's worsening symptoms. While the entries appeared to document her health issues, the nature of the records raised suspicions that James might have been using them to monitor and manipulate her condition. An examination of the couple's messages revealed additional details. On March 6, 2023, Angela texted James, thanking him for the coffee he had made for her. Shortly after, she mentioned feeling dizzy and weak. James responded by suggesting she check her blood pressure. Later that day, in the same conversation, James brought up powerful medications and attributed her symptoms to potential triggers, a comment that investigators later viewed as an attempt to deflect suspicion. Ryan, a longtime friend and business partner of James, shared that in 2021, James had confided in him about serious financial troubles and marital issues. At the time, James was even considering divorce. Later, James claimed that Angela had been struggling with severe depression and mentioned an incident where he allegedly stopped her from harming herself. However, the accounts provided by their 6 children contradicted these claims. They described Angela as a vibrant, cheerful person who showed no signs of depression or unusual behavior. Investigators also looked into events from December 2022 when James demanded a divorce. Despite this, he took no steps to seek professional help for Angela, whose mental health he had cited in conversations. This inconsistency, coupled with his pattern of withholding critical information, deepened suspicions that James's behavior could have been part of a calculated plan. The search of James's home and vehicle uncovered further evidence. In his home office, investigators found remnants of packaging believed to be linked to the cyanide delivery. In his car, traces of a powdery substance were discovered and sent for analysis. The accumulating evidence allowed investigators to focus on James's potential double life. Despite his outward image as a devoted family man, hidden troubles and secretive actions were beginning to surface. Financial struggles, marital discord, and detailed notes about Angela's symptoms were forming a clearer picture of what might have been happening behind the scenes. The history of James and Angela's marriage became a pivotal aspect of the investigation. Angela's sister recounted that Angela had frequently confided in her about feeling manipulated and pressured by James. She described him as someone who could spend hours discussing his problems without acknowledging fault or showing any willingness to change. Angela reportedly felt trapped in the situation but lacked the strength to break free. These accounts aligned with statements from James's colleagues who noted his frequent complaints about family difficulties. One colleague even recalled James once saying that life would be easier without all these obligations. Angela's medical records played a crucial role in the investigation. Over the past 2 years, she had visited doctors more frequently than usual, reporting unexplained symptoms such as stomach pain, dizziness, and weakness. These visits coincided with periods of heightened tension in her relationship with James, leading investigators to suspect a possible connection between her health issues and his actions. An analysis of James's search history revealed careful planning. He had researched toxic substances, including arsenic and cyanide, studied their applications, and learned methods to mask their taste in food and drinks. He also showed interest in articles about avoiding suspicion in poisoning cases. This digital trail pointed to a high level of preparation and intentionality. Financial records further illuminated the situation. Investigators found that James had been paying for a rented mailbox in a remote area, which he used to receive certain deliveries. Employees at the delivery service confirmed that James frequently picked up packages, often in the evening. One of these deliveries matched the timeline of his cyanide purchase, which was already under scrutiny. Interviews with Angela's friends provided additional leads. One friend recalled that weeks before her hospitalization, Angela had complained of strange symptoms and mentioned suspecting they might be related to something she ate or drank. However, she dismissed any possibility that James could be involved, attributing her condition to exhaustion or other health issues. To clarify the situation, investigators consulted toxicologists, who conducted tests on Angela's hair. The analysis revealed traces of arsenic and other toxic substances, indicating prolonged exposure to poisons. These findings strongly suggested that Angela's deteriorating health was not accidental. The accumulated evidence, including financial transactions, witness statements, and medical test results, began to form a clear narrative. James had not only planned his actions meticulously, but had also begun implementing them long before Angela's hospitalization. Still, investigators continued their work, determined to eliminate any lingering doubts. Detectives also delved into James's financial situation, uncovering troubling details. His dental practice was in dire straits, with debts exceeding $2 million. Adding to this was his gambling habit. James had lost a substantial amount of money in Las Vegas, further destabilizing his financial standing. These revelations offered a new perspective on the marital issues between James and Angela, which, according to Angela's sister, had been far from ideal for years. Angela's sister revealed that Angela had been trying to leave the marriage for 16 years, but James always found a way to convince her to stay. According to those close to her, Angela felt emotionally drained and trapped, but couldn't summon the strength to end the relationship. These accounts led investigators to suspect that James had been using manipulation tactics to maintain control over the situation. Emails uncovered during the investigation shed light on another side of James's life. Correspondence with a woman named Karen, an orthodontist from Texas, revealed an intimate relationship that began in 2022 when Karen filed for divorce. One particular detail caught investigators' attention. James had booked airline tickets for Karen on the same day he received an order of arsenic. In an email dated March 16th, Karen expressed regret that she couldn't be with James, adding that she hoped to see him soon. Meanwhile, investigators examined life insurance policies taken out in Angela's name. They discovered 3 policies, with payouts totaling a substantial amount. This finding intensified suspicions that James may have factored financial gain into his alleged plan. On March 18th, at 4:29 p.m., doctors declared Angela clinically deceased. Just hours later, James was charged with first-degree intentional homicide. According to investigators, James, who frequently prepared protein shakes for his wife, allegedly attempted to add arsenic to her drink on March 6, 2023. When that attempt failed, he ordered an expedited shipment of potassium cyanide, telling the supplier it was required for a medical procedure. The next day, James was arrested. At his initial court appearance, he was charged with multiple offenses, including evidence tampering. The judge set bail at $10 million. Shortly afterward, prosecutors added 2 new charges against James Craig: solicitation of murder and solicitation of perjury. While the indictment didn't specify whom James allegedly intended to harm, Aurora Police spokesperson Joe Moylan confirmed that the intended victim was an Aurora police detective. James Craig's trial has been delayed indefinitely. Craig, who has pleaded not guilty, is set to appear in court with a new attorney. Additionally, Craig faced allegations of secretly passing a letter from jail to another inmate who was released on bail through assistance from an adult daughter. Prosecutors stated that the letter contained a request to create a fake video, purportedly showing Angela Craig asking James to procure toxic substances for her. Following Angela's passing on March 18th, her family decided to donate her organs. This decision brought a small measure of comfort to her loved ones, knowing that her life could help save others. Her obituary, written by her family, focused on her kindness, her love for her family, and her dedication to helping those around her, omitting the tragic circumstances of her death. Meanwhile, Angela's 6 children were thrust into the center of these devastating events. After James's arrest, Angela's family took custody of them, determined to shield them from bearing the burden of his alleged actions. Angela's relatives worked tirelessly to ensure the children received the support and care they needed during this challenging time. This case uncovered the dark secrets James Craig had carefully concealed behind the facade of a successful career and a seemingly happy family life. His meticulously planned actions led to a tragic outcome that shattered not only his own life, but also the lives of his children, family, and loved ones. This story serves as a sobering reminder that outward appearances of stability and success can mask deep conflicts and hidden motives, leaving behind unanswered questions and countless lives forever changed.